The midnight encounter. The emergency call came just as Raven Pierce was finishing her shift at the Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue Station. A strange light had been reported deep in the wilderness, followed by what witnesses described as an earth-shaking boom. As the station's most experienced rescue specialist, Raven knew the treacherous mountain terrain better than anyone else. "I'll take this one solo," she told her supervisor, strapping on her rescue gear. The night was moonless, perfect for spotting any unusual lights, but it made navigation more challenging. Her boots crunched against fresh snow as she made her way up the familiar trail, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The coordinates led her to a remote area she rarely visited, mostly because the steep cliffs made it nearly inaccessible. As she approached, her equipment began acting strangely. The compass spun wildly, and her radio emitted nothing but static. Then she saw it, a pale blue glow emanating from behind a cluster of pine trees. Raven's heart hammered against her ribs as she pushed through the branches. What she found made her question everything she thought she knew about reality. A sleek vessel, about the size of a small car, had carved a path through the trees before embedding itself in the mountainside. It wasn't made of any material she recognized, its surface seemed to ripple like liquid metal under her flashlight beam. But it was the figure lying in the snow that demanded her immediate attention. At first glance, she appeared human, but the similarities ended there. Her skin had a subtle iridescent quality, like mother of pearl, and what Raven had initially mistaken for hair was actually a cascade of fine, silvery filaments that moved of their own accord. The alien was clearly injured. A jagged piece of what appeared to be the ship's hull had pierced her side, and luminescent violet fluid pulsed from the wound. Raven's rescue training kicked in, overriding her shock and disbelief. She dropped to her knees beside the injured being, pulling out her medical kit. "Can you understand me?" Raven asked, keeping her voice steady and calm. The alien's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that shifted color like the aurora borealis. She nodded weakly. "I am Naira," she whispered, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that made Raven's skin tingle. "The crash damaged my cellular regeneration system. I cannot heal." Raven worked quickly, assessing the wound. The metal shard had missed vital organs, but the blood loss was severe. She began applying pressure bandages, but the alien's luminescent blood seemed to dissolve them on contact. "Your methods won't work," Naira said, her voice growing fainter. "My species, we require genetic compatibility for healing. Without it, I will die." Raven looked at the dying alien, then at her medical kit, knowing nothing in it would help. The rational part of her mind screamed that what she was considering was insane, but something deeper, more instinctual, told her it was the only way. "What about human blood?" Raven asked, already pulling out a sterile blade from her kit. "Would that work?" Naira's color-shifting eyes widened. "The compatibility chances are astronomically low. And if we're not compatible, your blood could kill me instantly. Better than certain death, right?" Raven said, making a clean cut across her palm. "I'm O-negative, universal donor. If there's any chance." Before Naira could protest further, Raven let her blood drip into the alien's wound. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, where the two bloods met, a soft golden light began to emanate. Naira gasped, her back arching as the light spread through her entire body. Raven watched in amazement as the wound began to close, the alien tissue knitting itself back together. But something else was happening too. Where her blood had made contact with Naira's, she felt a strange warmth spreading up her arm, through her chest, and eventually throughout her entire body. The process lasted only minutes, but when it was over, both Raven and Naira knew that something unprecedented had occurred. They could feel it in the way their hearts now beat in perfect synchronization, in the subtle awareness they had of each other's presence. "This is impossible," Naira whispered, sitting up and touching her healed side. "In all our centuries of space exploration, we've never encountered a species with compatible genetic markers. Do you understand what you've done? Raven shook her head, still trying to process the strange sensations coursing through her body. I just did what needed to be done. But why do I feel different? Naira reached out and touched Raven's hand, sending a spark of energy between them. You've created a bond that's never existed before. My people will want to study this, to understand how it's possible. And others. Her expression darkened. Others will want to exploit it. The sound of helicopters in the distance broke the moment. Raven knew it wouldn't be long before others arrived to investigate the crash. Whatever had happened between them, whatever this bond meant, they needed to move quickly. Can your ship be repaired? Raven asked, helping Naira to her feet. The alien shook her head. The crash damaged its core systems. But I can activate its self-destruct sequence. There can be no evidence of my presence here. As they made their way down the mountain, Raven knew her life would never be the same. She had just become part of something larger than herself, larger than humanity itself. And somewhere deep inside, in that place where her blood now sang with alien energy, she knew this was only the beginning. Bonds of blood. 3 days after the encounter on the mountain, Raven couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed within her. She sat in her small cabin outside of town, watching as golden sparks danced between her fingertips, an ability that had manifested shortly after her blood mixed with Naira's. The alien herself sat cross-legged on Raven's worn leather couch, her iridescent skin casting subtle rainbows on the walls in the morning light. They had managed to destroy all evidence of the crash before the authorities arrived, and now they were trying to understand the extent of their transformation. The bond we share, Naira explained, her voice carrying that ethereal quality that made Raven's spine tingle. It's called the nexus among my people. But it's only ever occurred between members of our own species. The fact that it worked with a human. She trailed off, her aurora-like eyes distant. Raven closed her hand, extinguishing the sparks. You still haven't told me exactly what this nexus means for us. I can feel you in my head, sense your emotions, and somehow I know you can do the same with me. But there's more, isn't there? Naira nodded slowly. My people, the Luminari, we evolved to share genetic traits through blood exchange. It strengthens our collective abilities, allows us to adapt more quickly. But with you. She stood and approached Raven, placing a hand on her shoulder. Immediately, their shared energy hummed between them. With you, something unprecedented has occurred. Your human DNA has qualities we've never encountered before. It's not just accepting the changes, it's enhancing them. As if to demonstrate, Naira extended her free hand, creating a sphere of swirling energy. Raven instinctively reached out to touch it, and instead of dissipating, the sphere grew brighter, more stable. Together, they could accomplish what neither could do alone. But why me? Raven asked, watching as the energy sphere pulsed in rhythm with their synchronized heartbeats. Out of all the humans on Earth, why was my blood compatible? Before Naira could answer, a sharp pain lanced through both their minds. They stumbled apart, the energy sphere vanishing. Through their bond, Raven could feel Naira's sudden surge of fear. They're coming, Naira whispered, her filament-like hair writhing with anxiety. The Shadebringers. They must have detected our energy signature. The who? Raven asked, but images were already flooding her mind through their connection, dark ships descending from the stars, worlds burning, civilizations falling. The Shadebringers were the reason Naira's ship had crashed in the first place. They had been pursuing her, hunting for the secrets of the Luminari's genetic adaptability. If they find us, if they discover what we've achieved. Naira's fear rippled through their bond. A human Luminari nexus could give them the key they've been searching for. They would destroy your world to acquire it. Raven moved to the window, scanning the sky. Then we need to move. But first, you need to teach me everything you can about these abilities. If we're going to survive, I need to understand what I've become. Over the next few hours, Naira guided Raven through the basics of their shared powers. They could manipulate energy, enhance each other's strength and speed, and even heal minor injuries through their connection. But more importantly, they could share knowledge instantly through their bond. As night fell, Raven absorbed centuries of Luminari history and culture, while Naira gained an understanding of Earth and its people. Their minds melded and separated, each becoming more than they were, yet remaining distinctly themselves. "There's something else you should know," Naira said as they prepared to leave the cabin. "The Nexus, it's permanent. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't break this connection. Our fates are intertwined now." Raven shouldered her emergency pack, having filled it with essential supplies. "Good," she said firmly. "Because I have a feeling we're going to need each other." They stepped out into the night, their combined abilities allowing them to see clearly in the darkness. Above them, a faint distortion in the stars indicated the presence of cloaked ships entering the atmosphere. The Shadebringers were getting closer. "We need to find others," Naira said as they made their way into the forest. "There are more Luminari hidden on Earth, watching, waiting. With what we've discovered, we might finally have a way to stop the Shadebringers' advance." Raven felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She had gone from being a simple rescue specialist to possibly holding the key to saving two civilizations. Yet somehow, with Naira's presence steady in her mind and their shared power flowing through her veins, she felt ready for whatever came next. As they disappeared into the wilderness, their joined abilities cloaking them from detection, both human and alien knew that they were embarking on something unprecedented. Their blood bond had created something entirely new in the universe, a bridge between species, a source of power that could either save everything or destroy it all. The hunt was on, and they were both predator and prey. But they had one advantage their enemies couldn't understand: the unbreakable bond between them, a connection that transcended the boundaries of worlds and species. In each other, they had found not just an ally, but a completion they never knew they needed. Shadows and light. The abandoned subway tunnel echoed with their footsteps as Raven and Naira made their way through the darkness beneath New York City. 2 weeks had passed since they'd left the mountains, following traces of Luminari energy that Naira could sense through their growing powers. "There's definitely someone down here," Raven whispered, though she didn't need to speak aloud. Their bond had strengthened to the point where thoughts flowed as easily as words between them. But something feels different. Through their shared senses, they could detect a faint pulse of energy ahead, but it wasn't the pure, crystalline signature of a Luminari. This energy felt corrupted, twisted somehow. Naira's hair filaments writhed with tension. "It's wrong," she projected into Raven's mind. "This energy, it bears the taint of Shadebringer manipulation." They rounded a corner and froze. In a makeshift laboratory carved out of an old maintenance station, they found their quarry. A Luminari lay strapped to a metal table, his once iridescent skin now mottled with dark patches. Around him, strange machines pumped black fluid into his veins. But it was the figure operating the machines that made Raven's blood run cold. The man looked human, but through their enhanced senses, both she and Naira could see the truth. His aura pulsed with Shadebringer energy. "Well," the man said, turning to face them with eyes that gleamed like oil slicks, "I wondered when you two would find us. The hybrid bond between you has been lighting up our sensors like a beacon." Naira's shock rippled through their connection. "Theron. You're supposed to be dead. The Shadebringers destroyed your research station." The man, Theron, smiled, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp to be human. "They didn't destroy it, dear sister. They improved it. Showed me the true potential of our genetic adaptability." Raven felt Naira's surge of grief and betrayal as if it were her own. Through their bond, memories flooded between them, Theron and Naira as young scientists, working together to understand their species' unique biology, until the day the Shadebringers came. "You let them corrupt you," Naira said, her voice thick with emotion. "Everything we work to protect. Corrupt?" Theron laughed. They freed me from our species' limitations. And now. He gestured to the tortured luminari on the table. Now I'm continuing our work. Finding ways to force evolution, to create something greater than either luminari or shadebringer. Raven stepped forward, golden energy crackling around her hands. By torturing your own people. That's not evolution, it's abomination. Theron's eyes fixed on her with predatory interest. Ah, the human who achieved what I thought impossible. A true hybrid bond. He moved closer, studying her. Your blood must be exceptional. I look forward to studying it, extensively. Without warning, he struck. Black tentacles of energy erupted from his hands, whipping toward them with lethal intent. But Raven and Naira moved as one, their synchronized powers creating a shield of golden light. The battle that followed was unlike anything Raven had ever experienced. Through their bond, she and Naira fought in perfect harmony, their combined abilities matching Theron's corrupted power. Golden energy clashed with shadow, lighting up the tunnel in a spectacular display. But Theron wasn't fighting alone. The machines around them came to life, revealing themselves as biomechanical shadebringer tech. They slithered across the floor and walls, trying to separate the bonded pair. Your bond is strong, Theron snarled as he pressed his attack, but raw. Untested. Mine has been refined through years of shadebringer enhancement. Raven felt Naira's mind touch hers. Without words, they understood what needed to be done. Their hearts synchronized, beating as one, and they opened themselves fully to their connection. Pure light exploded from them, filling the tunnel with blinding radiance. The Shadebringer machines screeched and crumbled, their dark energy overwhelmed by the pure force of the human luminari bond. Theron screamed, his corrupted form unable to withstand the purifying light. When the radiance faded, he lay unconscious, the black energy seeping from his body like smoke. They worked quickly to free the captive luminari, using their combined healing abilities to stabilize him. Through their bond, Naira identified him as Valen, a scientist who had gone missing months ago. The Shadebringers, Valen whispered as they tended to him, they're not just hunting us anymore. They're trying to create hybrids of their own. But the process, it's killing everyone they tested on. Raven looked at Theron's unconscious form. Except him. He survived their experiments. Because he welcomed the corruption, Naira said softly. He chose to become what they made him. They secured Theron with energy bindings and called in a team of hidden luminari defenders that Naira knew operated in the city. As they watched them take both Theron and Valen away to a secure facility, Raven felt the weight of their discovery settling over them. The Shadebringers aren't just planning an invasion, she said, understanding flowing through their bond. They're trying to create an army of hybrids. And now they know about us. Naira took her hand, their combined energy pulsing with renewed strength. Yes, but they also just learned something else, that a willing bond, formed through trust and choice, is more powerful than anything they can force. As they made their way back to the surface, both knew that this encounter had changed everything. The Shadebringers wouldn't stop hunting them now, not when they had proof of what a successful hybrid could do. But they had also discovered their greatest advantage, the pure strength of their freely chosen connection. The war for Earth's future was coming, and they would need to find more allies, both human and luminari. But as long as they stood together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day, they had hope. Sometimes the greatest power comes not from what you are, but from who you choose to become together. The gathering storm. The secret luminari sanctuary beneath the old cathedral was alive with activity. Through their shared senses, Raven and Naira could feel the anxiety rippling through the gathered crowd, a mix of pure luminari and a handful of other human luminari pairs who had achieved their own bonds in the month since Theron's capture. They're coming, Valen announced, his recovered strength evident in his commanding presence. The former captive had become their chief strategist, his experience with Shadebringer technology proving invaluable. Our deep space sensors detected their fleet entering the solar system. We have less than 3 days. Raven felt Naira's fear spike through their bond, but it was tinged with determination. They had spent weeks helping other compatible humans and Luminari form bonds, teaching them to harness their combined abilities. Now, they had 12 bonded pairs, each bringing unique strengths to their growing resistance. What about the governments? Asked Dante, a former military officer now bonded to a Luminari scout named Lyris. We can't defend the planet without their help. We've made contact with several key officials, Naira responded, projecting images of their secret meetings through the bond network they had established. But revealing ourselves too broadly could cause panic. The Shadebringers have infiltrators everywhere. Raven stepped forward, her golden energy intertwining with Naira's as they addressed the group. We've learned something from studying Theron's corrupted bond. The Shadebringers don't just want to create hybrids, they want to use Earth as a testing ground for forced evolution. They believe that human genetic diversity holds the key to perfecting their process. The room erupted in concerned murmurs, both verbal and psychic. Through their expanded awareness, Raven and Naira could feel the fear and determination flowing through the gathered pairs. But we have something they don't understand, Raven continued. Our bonds weren't forced, they were chosen. Every pair here came together out of trust, out of a willingness to share not just power, but everything they are. As if to demonstrate, she and Naira raised their hands, creating a sphere of pure energy that illuminated the chamber. The other pairs followed suit, their combined power filling the room with a rainbow of light. Each pair's energy had its own unique signature, a reflection of their individual bond. The Shadebringers are coming with a fleet of 50 ships, Valen said, projecting tactical data through their shared consciousness. They'll try to establish ground bases first, using their corrupted hybrids to infiltrate major population centers. Then we need to be ready, came a new voice. Everyone turned to see Theron being led into the chamber, his formerly corrupted form now purified by weeks of healing work from the bonded pairs. I know their tactics, their weaknesses. The forced bonds they create are unstable, dependent on constant technological support. Raven felt Naira's mixture of hope and caution at seeing her brother. Through their bond, she shared her partner's complex emotions, the joy of having him back, tempered by the memory of his betrayal. The Shadebringers rely on corruption and force, Theron continued, his eyes clear of their former darkness. But what you've created here, these true bonds, they're more powerful than anything their technology can achieve. I understand that now. A warning alarm cut through the discussion. Valen rushed to the monitoring station, his expression grim. They're accelerating their approach. New estimate puts them here in 36 hours. Then we move now, Raven declared, her voice carrying the weight of command. Each bonded pair will take a continent, coordinating with local authorities and preparing defense networks. Naira and I will lead the direct assault on their main vessel. Through their expanded bond network, they shared the battle plan. Each pair would use their unique abilities to protect their assigned regions, while simultaneously working to expose and eliminate Shadebringer infiltrators. What about the other Luminari in hiding around the world? Asked one of the newer pairs. There must be more potential bonds we could form. There's no time, Naira responded. We'll have to work with what we have. But every successful bond we've created proves that our species were meant to find each other. Perhaps that's what the Shadebringers fear most, not our power, but our capacity to unite. As the pairs dispersed to their assigned positions, Raven and Naira remained behind with Theron. Through their bond, they shared a moment of understanding. The coming battle would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of human-Luminari relations throughout the galaxy. The Shadebringers don't understand love, Theron said softly, watching the golden energy still flowing between his sister and her human partner. They see bonds as tools, as weapons to be forged. They never consider that the strongest connections can't be forced, they can only be offered and accepted freely. Raven felt Naira's agreement resonate through their bond. In the weeks since their first meeting on that snowy mountainside, their connection had grown into something far beyond mere power sharing. They had become essential parts of each other, their strengths and weaknesses balanced in perfect harmony. As they made their final preparations, Raven and Naira stood at the cathedral's highest window, watching the night sky where soon their enemies would appear. Through their bond, they shared not just thoughts and power, but hope that what they had discovered together might light the way to a future neither of their species could have imagined alone. The storm was coming, but they would face it as they had faced everything since that first fateful night, together, their freely chosen bond stronger than any force in the universe. Beyond the stars. The sky above Earth blazed with unnatural light as the Shadebringer fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their ships, massive constructs of dark metal and pulsing corruption, blotted out the stars as they moved into attack formation. But Earth wasn't defenseless. Scattered across the globe, 12 pairs of human luminary bonds prepared to make their stand. Raven and Naira hovered in the upper atmosphere, their combined powers creating a protective field around them. Through their expanded bond network, they could feel the other pairs moving into position, Dante and Lyris coordinating military responses in Asia, while other pairs established defense grids across the remaining continents. They're scanning for compatible human signatures. Naira communicated through their bond, her consciousness intertwined with Raven's. Just as Theron warned, they want to harvest Earth's genetic potential. The first wave of Shadebringer dropped ships descended through the atmosphere, each carrying corrupted hybrids created through their forced bonding process. But the resistance was ready. Across the globe, bonded pairs engaged the enemy, their freely chosen connections proving far more powerful than the Shadebringer's artificial ones. In Moscow, a pair of bonded defenders turned back an entire squadron of corrupted hybrids. In Rio, another pair used their combined abilities to expose and eliminate Shadebringer infiltrators before they could establish a foothold. Each victory resonated through their shared bond network, strengthening their collective resolve. But the real battle was about to begin. The Shadebringer flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed all others, moved into position above North America. Through their enhanced senses, Raven and Naira could feel the corrupt energy pulsing within it, and something else. There are prisoners aboard, Raven realized, the knowledge flowing between them. More Luminari, and humans too. They're experimenting on them, trying to force more bonds. Their shared anger fueled their power as they soared toward the flagship. Other pairs engaged the smaller ships, creating a corridor for their approach. The Shadebringers had numbers and technology, but they couldn't match the pure strength of willing bonds. As they breached the flagship's outer defenses, Theron's voice reached them through their network. The ship's core is powered by corrupted bond energy. If you can reach it, your pure bond could trigger a cascade reaction. But he hesitated, the power release would be catastrophic. You'd have to contain it somehow. Raven felt Naira's understanding mirror her own. They would have one chance, and the cost would be enormous. But as they fought their way through the ship's corridors, their combined powers blazing against waves of corrupted defenders, they knew it was worth the risk. They found the prison section first. Hundreds of humans and Luminari, held in stasis chambers for experimentation. Through their bond, Raven and Naira coordinated with the ground teams to begin evacuation procedures. Each life saved was a blow against the Shadebringer's plans. But they couldn't save everyone. As they approached the core, they encountered the results of the Shadebringer's most recent experiments, hybrid creatures twisted almost beyond recognition, their forced bonds driving them mad with pain and rage. This is what they wanted to do to all of us, Naira communicated, her grief flowing through their connection. Turn us into weapons, strip away everything that makes bonds sacred. The core chamber was a massive spherical room, filled with swirling dark energy. At its center, they could see the source, dozens of corrupted bonds, forcibly linked together to power the entire fleet. The sight filled them both with horror and determination. We can end this, Raven projected, feeling Naira's agreement. Not just for Earth, but for every world they've threatened. They moved together, their steps perfectly synchronized as they approached the core. The ship's defenders tried to stop them, but their attacks dissipated against the pure energy of Raven and Nyra's bond. Years of trust, understanding, and freely given love had created something the Shadebringers couldn't comprehend, let alone defeat. "Ready?" Raven asked, though the question was unnecessary. Through their bond, they were already moving as one. They pressed their hands against the core, allowing their combined power to flow into it. The reaction was immediate, their pure bond energy began to neutralize the corruption, setting off a chain reaction throughout the ship. But containing the release would require everything they had. Through their network, they could feel the other pairs lending their strength. Across the globe, humans and Luminari joined together, their collective power flowing through Raven and Nyra's bond. The ship's core began to pulse with golden light, corruption burning away beneath the pure energy of willing bonds. In that moment, as they held back the power of an exploding star, Raven and Nyra shared something deeper than thoughts or memories. They shared a vision of the future, a world where humans and Luminari could choose to bond freely, where their combined strength would forge a new path among the stars. The core detonated, but they contained the blast, channeling its energy upward, away from Earth. The Shadebringer fleet, their ships linked to the flagship's power, began to fail. Without their corrupted core, without their forced bonds, they were powerless against the combined will of Earth's defenders. When it was over, when the last Shadebringer ship had either fled or been neutralized, Raven and Nyra floated back to Earth in a gentle descent, their bond humming with exhausted satisfaction. Below them, across every continent, humans and Luminari were emerging from hiding, ready to begin a new chapter in both their species' histories. It was never about power, Nyra shared through their bond as they watched the sunrise together. The Shadebringers sought to force evolution, to create the perfect weapon. But they never understood that true strength comes from choice, from two beings choosing to trust, to share, to become more together than they ever could alone. Raven smiled, feeling their bond pulse with shared joy and possibility. So what do we do now? Through their connection, they both knew the answer. This was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, other worlds waited, other species who might learn from what humans and Luminari had discovered together. And they would face whatever came next as they had faced everything since that first night in the mountains, together, their bond lighting the way to a future brighter than either of them could have imagined alone.